First of all, no, everyone's good? Okay. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Parkinson. I'm part of S.U.N, which is Scarborough United Neighbourhoods, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's forum. S.U.N appreciates the opportunity to collaborate with the Scarborough Southwest community leaders to host a second forum so they can share their respective concerns, suggestions for improvements in both their neighbourhoods and in Scarborough Southwest with our new Councillor Kandavel. Format, each group leader will have approximately 10 to 15 minutes to introduce themselves, share their group's scope, local concerns, and suggestions for improvement. Councillor Kandavel will also have the opportunity to respond. Note, depending on time, there may be opportunities for open discussion after the leaders present. This forum will be recorded and will be shared and posted for residents to see and hear what's happening in Scarborough Southwest. Also, the forums do not replace any opportunities for any groups or residents from meeting with the councillor directly. There's a lot happening in the city, and S.U.N's focus is sharing information for Scarborough residents' awareness. The status quo isn't working, and collaborative communication is critical at this time for residents who are taxpayers and shareholders in the city, to have their voices heard and to be included in decision making. At this time, we want to welcome our newly elected Ward 20 Southwest Councillor Parthi Kandavel to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, S.U.N, and thank you everyone for coming out, for creating this opportunity to connect in a meaningful way all the important stakeholders in our community, residents, folks, advocacy organizations, business associations, public sector folks that all make an impact in the lives of our families and our neighborhoods of our community. So this is something I want to be a regular tradition. It's not just a space to talk about issues, but to also connect, find intersection in the work, and connect the dots for not just Scarborough Southwest, but a bigger conversation about Scarborough and the dramatic changes that are coming before us. Right? And I think, solidarity is important because all of the decisions that are made at City Hall impact all of our neighborhoods and our networks in so many important ways. And I'm really looking forward to that engagement and what everyone has to say. And also share a bit of, my first month on the job. Very fascinating time to get dropped right in. So much has happened. We had a very obviously busy election, and the next day I met with the mayor, the next week getting sworn in, the week after that, December 13, 14, 15 council meetings. And now, as you know, we're amidst a very contentious budget process. What you saw or heard the last, week and a half is the city staff proposed budget, meaning 10.5% proposed tax hike that we're deliberating upon. And I'll talk a bit about some of the stuff I spoke to yesterday at the first budget meeting, 3 full days, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And what that's going to result in is the mayor proposing her budget, which is the real budget under the new Strong Mayors Act, which is not, so there's a lot of confusion. Certain things she can opt out of not using, but now for all the big cities, the budget is at the hands of the mayor, which to its credit allows greater clarity on who's driving the city, right? So I think that is a good thing that came out of the Strong Mayors Act, that it places responsibility with one individual as opposed to saying, hey, this is wheeling and dealing by city councilors, which was, the argument before, right? That it was council's budget, not the mayor's budget. So I think it gives some clarity. So February 1st, the mayor, after listening to residents' feedback, and I encourage everyone who's got an opinion, say ideas about this budget, to delegate it on Monday, January 22nd. There's 2 opportunities to have at least 3 sitting budget count committee members to hear, our residents' opinions at Scarborough Civic Center. I think it's 1:30 p.m. and 6 p.m., but my staff can confirm. And on February 1st, she'll be presenting that to us and City Council, of course, the city. Then we've got 2 weeks to reflect on that, and then culminating on February 14th, Valentine's Day. There'll be 11 or maybe not on that day, and that's an opportunity to make changes and to signal my councillor's support for that or not. So that's a big thing. Yesterday I spoke to 3 pieces that, and last week as well, that mattered to many of us. The proposal to withdraw windrow services, snow clearing, which impact disproportionately Scarborough, well, suburbs, but particularly for seniors who would rather, I think for many with mobility challenges, that is something important that we've provided for so long. And to see that at the chopping block from staff, and I called that out, right? I asked them, how do we reconcile that with the commitments we've made in our senior strategy, which allow for aging in place? Windrow clearing is central to allowing those who are seniors who are aging in place to stay in their homes, right? And staff didn't have a satisfactory response to that. So that was one piece. The other piece, you may have heard my activism for a while now, my voice on the Scarborough busway, a key central plank to the winning mayoralty election for Mayor Olivia Chow, in winning Scarborough, which decided the election. Congestion and traffic as a result of its closure has increased, multiple fold along Kennedy and Midland, and having spillover effects, of course, on Birchcliff, Warden, McCowan. We're seeing the subway expansion. So the quality of life has made it very challenging. It was a key promise. So one of the motions I'll be moving tomorrow is for staff to come back with a clear plan on that question. So what a briefing note, that's what I'm moving tomorrow, but what a briefing note does at the budget committee deliberation signals to the budget committee, the mayor, this is a big item, right? And this is something we need to ensure is in the budget, regardless of how it goes down in terms of tax hike, that it's a priority that impacts all Scarborough neighborhoods. For those who are not familiar, it's replacing the old RT route with a dedicated express busway. It's something transit, TDC users want, riders, as well as, of course, drivers. The other item that I spoke to, and it was something important to all of Scarborough, is the Delta Hotel, right? I see Happy Rhoda's here, was being a strong voice. She, was an incredibly strong voice at the budget committee to bring attention to a disparity that we're seeing in our city. And this is by no means at all, any sort of criticism of our shelter strategy. Using hotels has been one, but the Delta Hotel is, and there are great examples within Scarborough, the hotel, the Mark and Miller, is it the Travel Lodge, that's being run very well. And Councillor Myers, to his credit, also stood up and spoke out, as did Councillor Mantis. The Delta Hotel, as you know, is a really, and I hate to say it, it's a sad fact, our only nice hotel in Scarborough. I remember as a kid, always I was like, wow, that must be really fancy, and I never went into as a kid, but it speaks to how we have to preserve our social economic assets. We don't have many in Scarborough, and that's a result of many factors, but part of it is the lack of investment we've seen through successive administrations. So getting the Scarborough Delta up and running, so soccer leagues, hockey leagues that routinely used to host tournaments and have 15, 20 teams, players, their families staying in the hotel, driving economic activity to Scarborough businesses, restaurants, is very important, is when we rethink how we revitalize Scarborough. And this is something we flagged over the next couple of weeks are going to be important, because we need to get all Scarborough councillors on side to make that pitch to the mayor, and I was happy to see at least 3 of us speak up. I know Councillor McKelvey, Deputy Mayor, feels strongly as well about this, and we need to get Councillors Ainsley and Thompson as well to speak up, because yes, we need, the strategy is, you know, we've got 17 sites, 17 hotels that are, but to have one site at nearly 400, you know, those who are unhoused is not doing justice to them, especially, right? Because the data and the experts are clear, we need smaller sites to deliver services to them. And that's dead in, you know, a part of a high-density 8-condo residential community. They're seeing the impacts coming from folks who are not being served the way they should be. So that's an important thing, and it speaks to what I think is a sad political reality, is that the city looks to Scarborough to solve problems they don't want in certain neighborhoods. And this is something, if you're watching my comments in committee, is speaking to how geography impacts how we live and the impacts on our lives. So that's a lens that I approach everything at City Hall. As I said during my campaign, if it's good for Scarborough, I'll stand up for it and support it. But if we're noticing disparities like I did on daycare, and one of the items I'll be moving tomorrow this briefing note is what's the city's plan to expand city-run, city-operated daycare sites in Scarborough. The map is very clear. West of Vic Park, you see concentration, and east of Vic Park, you see very few sites. So I'll end with, you know, why I was late today. I should have started with an apology. It was with Birchcliff residents at the church discussing, it was a meeting that we had to organize very quickly, because this Friday we've got Scarborough Community Council and there's a rezoning application. We're seeing a number of these. Commercial retail, the car wash on Clonmore, to a 12-story condo. And it's not so much the development, though I think we need to have a wider conversation about this habitual practice of rezoning community assets for residential. We saw, I don't have to tell you the story of the Sun Valley. You know, this is where we need critical voices that need to question, yes, we have to build, but we need to have complete communities as part of this. And but for those of you who know the area, the quarry lands for 7 years was not to be built on.
Yeah.
It was landfill, it was a toxic landfill in the 40s. And that's why, the context to why for 7 years it wasn't built. Now we're building on it, so it needs to be done very, very carefully and in a very, not just sustainable, in a very thorough manner before we build on the impacts of soil contamination and the work that needs to be done if we're building on it. For those of you who may remember in Scarborough in the 80s, there was a famous case about in northeast Scarborough and Malvern, where Ontario Housing built on a contaminated site. And in the 70s, in the 80s, we saw the impacts of being built on a contaminated site, and really good on those residents. They got together, they didn't settle with the province, who were willing to pay them off. And they took the province to court and they won. And they won in the 90s, a famous case. But this is what we're dealing with. So that's the context of why I'm late. We wrapped up that meeting because on Friday that application's coming to Scarborough Community Council. Anyway, I won't get into the details, but it's going to get interesting.
We can have details later, and we'll move along, and that'd be great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So we'll start with the process, and we'll start with Scarborough Junction. Monica, would you like to speak?
Maybe Misha has to run to do a software pickup,
Okay.
so
Yeah,
I
so,
can go by that.
yeah, thanks. Parthi, thanks so much for coming. Congratulations. I'll also say that Parthi and his team were kind enough to help us with an issue at the ice rink the other day, during the holidays. It wasn't open during the day. It was open from 4 to 9 and staff, but during the holidays it wasn't. So the warm changing area wasn't available, and the skating helpers, and there was no staff. So over the last couple of days, they were able to get that going, so thank you for that, and for meeting with us already. So I'm gonna be fairly brief, because you know most of these issues. We're trying to kind of dig down a little bit and get some timelines on things. So for those of you who don't know, Danforth Gardens brings together local residents to improve community safety, organize community social events, provide community support, engage in neighborhood improvement initiatives, communicate community issues, represent the community to local politicians and agencies. We have 343 Facebook members, 111 subscribers. And we're in the Warden and right around Warden Station, just east of Warden Station. As Parthi is aware, there's the development at the beer store, 3431 St. Clair, that they want to put the driveway out onto Elfrida Boulevard. We're concerned about traffic infiltration and congestion and safety at the school pickup and drop off. Parthi's been informed of this. I gave them a PowerPoint and stuff on this. I won't bore you with all the details, but the residents would like a traffic light at suggesting a traffic light at St. Clair and Elfrida, a turn restriction at Elfrida, and a curb bump out at Elfrida, which the planners have already put into the plan. And this is to stop traffic infiltration, also allow people from our neighborhood a third safe alternative onto St. Clair and out of the neighborhood, because we're kind of a little huge cul-de-sac in the corner. Parthi, as a number of other candidates did, supported this plan, and bottom line, we'd like you to reaffirm your support for this plan that you committed during the election campaign and pledge to work with us in a timely manner to address these issues. Knowing that, you know, we can't put a no left turn sign up until the building's actually built. But, so that's what we're looking for on that. The second big issue for our residents, and we're just really a neighborhood association, that's it, that's what we are. So these issues are pretty granular. Safety plan for Danforth Gardens. In the spring of 2022, members of our association met with the former councillor, his staff, bylaw enforcement officers, police officers, city traffic staff, school admin, community members, and school parents, over $1 million worth of salaries. They're standing outside the school to address the unsafe congestion in front of the school at pickup and drop off, with the bottom line being, oh, this problem is at every school. Well, that's not acceptable to me when kids' safety is at risk. There was a draft plan has been created, so we're asking the council to commit to picking up where the last council left off and assist in implementing this plan, which I'm not going to get into right now, to reduce the risk of pickup and drop off. That includes following up on and advocating for a crossing guard at Newlands and Santa Monica. I'll give you this, and I've sent it to you, emailed as well. Just a minor issue, and I know you were trustee before and very helpful to me and us on 3 or 4 issues while you were trustee. A couple times, this is new to you, we didn't bring it up last time because we were quite rushed because the Birchcliff people were knocking on the door outside the boardroom. And we know they have more sway. All right, so sorry.
All kidding aside.
All kidding aside, yes, truly kidding. So there's been 3 initiatives to try and either open up the library gate that goes from the schoolyard to the library, or Birchmont Avenue, the Parkette, and Danforth proper, the park proper, and it connects with the school. It's insanity, it's a safety issue, kids could run out, people can come in, causes parking issues. So it's come up again, this time City Parks. Last time it was a former resident that was reminiscing about how he used to go have French fries at the park, not realizing different times, more people, whatever. So just putting that on your radar, if that comes up again, that certainly have a discussion. I did have a discussion with the city planner regarding that issue. And the senior staff at the city connected to TDSB. I made sure the VP was quite informed on the issue, and they said no. So it's a hard no. The city planner, Jeffrey Sinclair, is saying they've dropped it. But it's this whole access thing, right? It's 400 meters longer to walk around on a paved sidewalk that's plowed. Okay. So just, those are our Danforth Gardens issues. So I'll leave this with you, and I'll kick around for a couple minutes in case I can help out Monica.
I was remiss to make a quick introduction of some of my staff who are here today. It's something I wanted to, I promised in the election, but more than a promise it's important to me personally that my staff who are representative and ambassadors and missionaries of mine live in the ward and represent the ward. And you know, though we haven't been out of the gates with a full staff complement yet, we'll be taking this very you know, thoughtfully and deliberately. I want to introduce, you know, two of my staff here. Tamara, as you all know, Tamara Herman lives in Birchcliff. Bovin, who some of you may have saw last week, Bovin is in Scarborough Junction, lives in and grew up in the ward, product of, you go to Danforth Gardens? And Saytech, is studying.
You wouldn't recognize it.
Yeah, so my staff, these two, is Leslie coming back?
She's coming back.
So Leslie is an active parent in Cliffside, and you all know actually Goulet. I brought Goulet on staff. And he's,
That's why I couldn't come tonight. Got working hard.
he lives in Oakridge as well, so like myself. So we're trying to cover all our neighborhoods. And Sandy,
Yeah.
exactly. And Sandy, who's my chief of staff, who was with me at the Birchcliff, but she couldn't come today. She's at Opange as well. She is in the ward as well. So far, we're getting representation. That's important. So anyway, I just wanted to quickly.
No, that's a good point, that's a good point. And then we can go now to Scarborough Junction. Monica?
Hello everyone, my name is Monica Gutierrez and I live in Danforth Gardens. And I work across both of these groups with Misha. The Scarborough Junction community is a newer group. We started in 2022 with a few folks, and one of the major reasons that we started is the giant development that's proposed at St. Clair and Kennedy, where there's industrial lands right now. But that's not the only one. There's multiple, we often say we're like inundated with development proposals in our small Scarborough Junction Triangle community, and the intention of this group is to advocate for residences so that the developments that come in contribute to a quality of life instead of take away from it. Some of our goals are to ensure that the impact of the development is net positive and that the community is heard when wanting to make changes to developments, to the developer's final site plans, to ensure that infrastructure is adequate to accommodate local and ward-wide development, and get firm commitments from politicians and city planners to that effect. And we're also using our group and the development that's coming to the community as an opportunity to enhance and build complete communities and walkable communities. So I have three sort of items that we'd like to share with everyone and with Parthi, and hopefully get some commitments, maybe timeframes on them. So the first one we've already shared is the West Scarborough Rail Trail. So for folks that aren't familiar, there is a hydro corridor right behind Warden's subway station that connects a few communities, crosses St. Clair and then goes north, and could even eventually connect to the Meadoway Trail. We have been speaking on this for a couple of years, and with our previous councillor, there was a motion in council that was approved. We'd like to know sort of where that's sitting now, and if that approval means that the project can move forward, if there's funding connected to it. We understand also that with some of the developments that are coming in and the park funding allocation, that potentially some of that money could be put towards it. If that's the case, that would be wonderful. But we're hoping that this happens regardless of that. So we'd like to know sort of with that motion, where is it at? And then is there a time frame that we can expect to hear on next steps and to hopefully get it going? And an issue connected to this is that the 685 Warden Avenue, which is that empty lot just north of where the TD used to be and where the storage area is, which we were promised the grocery store years ago, and then so that development that's coming in with sort of limited retail, they have proposed a park that'll be sort of in between all the buildings, and we contend that it would be better for that parkette to be behind the building and connected to the West Scarborough Rail Trail.
And just to clarify that before I leave, the city parks wants the traditional park inside the four buildings. The developers proposed to develop for their park dedication as the beginning of the West Scarborough Rail Trail, which our community supports. So it's, what we'd like you to do is investigate that with parks. It's currently at OLT. I think it's coming up in February or March, I think, that particular one. There's a bunch of things that are appealing. But what we'd like is not to contest that one, that to have the park there. Apparently, I was told by former councilor's staff that there would be, that the developer may even be able to kick in some extra money or be willing to. So someone needs to go, the councilor needs to go talk to lawyers about that and make sure that if the West Scarborough Rail Trail is gonna happen, we need that piece of land. And I'd rather they develop it, and it's the beginning of the whole trail. So it's important that you intervene in that if possible, because it's kind of a linchpin issue on the whole thing. Sorry.
So Misha?
Yeah.
Your document that you put here is really detailed, really good.
Yeah.
Are you okay, because you sent it electronically to me as well?
Yeah.
That we share it with the community here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because I think this is good for others to see how the context is written in that, and sharing information is what we do, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I'll let Monica
thank you.
handle the other two items. Thanks so much, everyone, and sorry, I'd love to hear what you have to
I
say,
know we're
but
all busy, I know.
I gotta pick up the kid.
Have a good day.
The other issue is the retail preservation for the developments that are coming in the area. So with Sun Valley as an example, there was 2,500 meters of retail originally, and with community advocacy, it's increased only by like 100 so we understand that the city did step in and intervened on our behalf, but in the long term, that's not gonna be sufficient. Everyone's concerned about food security in the area. So that's something that we're very concerned as well, and we imagine that all the plazas nearby are at just as much risk, and they could follow sort of the same story as Sun Valley. So with the closest grocery store 3 kilometers away in our neighborhood, with lots of elderly residents, lower income folks, new immigrants, not everyone has a car, single parent families, we're wanting to get a better sense of how you intend to preserve the retail in our neighborhood, and hopefully work to bring a grocery store to increase our food security in that area. And not just that, but also just other types of retail that we're losing just in that plaza alone. Hoping not to lose the bank, hoping to still have all the other services. So we'd like to know how you would like to help us with that.
So that's what I ran on, and I was attacked for being an NIMBY, you'll recall. So this is where it's gonna take the community working together. The Scarborough Junction, we flagged with staff a lot of the major, so to give you a quick summary, we're seeing almost 20 condos, 13 of which are between 40 to 60 stories in a very residential area by Kennedy and St. Clair. Huge impact, to say the least. I don't think that's undervaluing the actual impact. It's massive, it's enormous. The climate in which we're in, that's, we all agree there is a housing crisis, which was, made multiple by, federal government decisions, and then, provincial government vis-a-vis Bill 23, essentially, creating incentives and pressures to, build, right? And at the altar of supply, we are confronted with these applications of that have enormous impact. Some of the major decisions with Scarborough Junction had been made prior to my time. It's now going to the OLT, and this is where we flagged with staff that this is a priority. This was one of the biggest things I ran on in 2022, and we could have had more of an impact, but now, more than a year and a half later, we're in a tougher scenario. We're getting briefed on it, and to my earlier point about having solidarity among Scarborough councillors is important, because I think we're seeing the same uneven, inconsistent application of planning principles across Scarborough. Take Malvern Mall. Completely ridiculous, in my opinion, what's happening there. An area that's underserved, has important family-run independent businesses there, serving a community underserved by transit, social services, and you're putting in 20 and 30 high-rise condominiums. But you're not seeing any sort of application of planning principles on the Danforth, where you have 7 subway stops. You see the Stubway, North York, Bayview Village, affluent community maintaining their same thing. So to me, it's clear and crystal clear the implications from these examples is that planning principles are not being held consistent, right? So, which is to say, as a councillor coming in at this point, there's no way I'm gonna flip a switch and reverse that development. But there's a fight to be had. Community needs to be engaged. The reason in the height of the pandemic, these decisions started rolling is because community couldn't get out and meet in person and have their voice heard. So we need to organize, agitate, get community to come out. I've got staff now that we can go out, and we were talking about this in the afternoon in our office about getting out into the communities, knocking on doors, and getting people out. A lot of people are not aware. They're completely not aware of the impacts coming before us. And decisions are being made in the dark, in the cold, when community couldn't be engaged, right? And this is not to say, and this is where you always have to be wary of folks who try to poison the conversation. Oh, you're a NIMBY, you don't want to build. No. If you're building 20-story condos, we wouldn't be here. We're fine with that. We know how Greystone Walk works. It's a perfect example of mixed income, mixed community, right? So what we're seeing is grief, it's lack of vision, and incomplete communities. And I was heartened when I saw some of our senior staff acknowledge that these development applications are not creating complete communities. So that was a win for me this week when we were able to impression upon. Same applies to the Golden Mile, right? Look at the rendering for the Golden Mile, 60 condos. The bulk are 40 stories plus. And they're telling us to our face, some planners, oh, everyone's gonna leave their car and they're gonna be using Metrolinks. Come on, get out of here, right? Like, this is and the planner who tells me this lives at Woodbine and Danforth. I'm like, I see it, and he's like, well, you've got the privilege of walking down your street, getting into a subway, and you've got a car, and you don't see any density. My staff and I would carpool downtown. We drive through beaches, East York and Toronto, Danforth. We never see anything more than 3, 4, 5 stories. It's absolutely ridiculous how the city's being planned, right?
Look at Shepherd Avenue. Drive Shepherd Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I say this because, and the reason I spend so much time on here, and I know this of being a trustee, you can make impact in a few areas. To me and to our office, it's making impact on the big ones like Scarborough Junction and Golden Mile. We're going to be putting a heavy voice on it, and that's going to require getting the community involved and active because it's going to OLT. And I can't get into anything further until we're fully briefed. I got, as I mentioned, when we finished our first council meeting in mid-December, all senior staff went on holidays. So I only got to see, we were like, you know, despite being burned out from the campaign and everything, we knew the burden before us and the work before us. We couldn't meet with senior staff for 3 weeks until, when did school restart? January 9th? Yeah, 8th. And it was just that week, and we're meeting like on the big item issues, right? And we're hiring and interviewing. So those two are the biggest needs. So to you know, without going any further, the West Scarborough Rail Trail, yes, it's important. I'm fully supported the idea of working with the developer in that case, which that one kind of makes sense because it's closer to transit, you know. But working with them on that to make it part of the West Scarborough, getting the funds, whether it's from them or the city, is critical, right? But the last piece on Sun Valley Retail, that's all, I live in the area, between Birchmount and Warden on the Danforth. Sun Valley is a big loss to us personally. I want to keep the retail, and this is where it's a fight, right? We need to make it clear, you can't rezone everything. It's literally where I was coming from, you know, another rezoning of a car wash, right? This is where I think there's some ability, we'll see where Danforth lands on their potential revisions to Bill 23, because I think he's aware you need a balance between community and developer. And what Bill 23 did, it shifted the power in developers' hands. And I think he's recognizing that, and why we haven't got clarity. They made signals in December and in January that they're gonna revisit Bill 23. Because I think he's a smart politician, he's looking to 2026. So if that happens, and we also need to engage with the mayor's office, right? So it's a lot of thoughtful deliberation on my mind and my staff members, because we're also hearing from committee about the 10.5 tax increase, right? It's hitting with a lot of working class communities that are house poor in Scarborough Southwest. They've got a house, got a mortgage, and they've got a car, but they're just getting by. Another $300 to $400 a year is a lot. So, but, so these are the competing factors, right? In terms of what we're going through. So I'll leave it at that. So.
In terms of community engagement and getting folks out, Scarborough Junction has held a few community information meetings where people come across information that they had never heard about potential developments in the area, or developments that have already been approved and they didn't even know about them. And you'll get those sheets in the mail about upcoming developments, but they're so technical, they're so dense.
On purpose.
Nobody could ever read
Intentionally
them.
so.
And so we would like you to commit to holding community information meetings that are accessible for folks. And we'd like to know when you would be able to do that. We have been doing some of that work, and we are happy to book the library space, and we're happy to do the outreach. But it's important that it comes from the city, and that the information is updated and the most current. I think in order for us to get our neighbors out and to get that advocacy and
That's what I ran on, that's what we're doing. Like literally we had 2 meetings, so there's one 12-story meeting on Clonmore, right? That's coming up on Friday. But the Scarborough Junction, Golden Mile, those are the elephants in the room. We need to have to do that. So we're getting our briefing on Scarborough Junction early next week, and as soon as we get that stuff, we're gonna sort out and call that meeting. And
I think having them with certain regularity to provide updates as they come along, like it's really great to have a meeting about a specific project, but there's so many updates as it goes through the process that communities will wanna know throughout and with some frequency, so having regularity with that would be the most beneficial.
No, completely. No, that's, and it's not just updating them, it's showing, training, teaching them how to get involved as active citizens, right? That's what we did at the school board. We had parents come and delegate. They never got to delegate, right? And it's not that hard. It just, the institutions are deliberately intimidate. I shouldn't say intimidate. They create, what's seemingly difficult, unnecessarily, I think sometimes. Perhaps, some may see them as barriers, but getting people to come out and sort out timelines. This is how you delegate, this is how you register, here are sample talking points. These are the stuff that we've done in the past that we need to do now on development in the community. So we're fully connected to that. Our staff are all being impacted by this, so this is why it's important.
If I could just add to that, this is what S.U.N is doing, is with the resources and volunteers, find information. You're exactly correct. Trying to sign up for this event and that event is like, it's crazy, right? And only because of helping and talking to each other, we're able to stick handle through the thing. But the key message here is I know the in-person thing is really good, but not everyone shows up. You get the electronic version, which can be today's news, and then you can deal with it and say, I need a meeting for it. So I think if anything, electronic is a way to start it. Just put it out there, like we just did the one about where to go and see these meetings. There's virtual one tonight and one tomorrow. You can just sign on to it, and it is fairly easy, or you can go and do your deputations and stuff next week. So there's all that information, but people are so busy. But you know what? They're always looking at their phone, and guess what? They see that and go, oh, that catches my eye, and they get wise of it. So that's something for the staff and your team. They used to do the paper newsletters once a month, right? And then people were just going, I didn't get my newsletter. Well, we're saving money on it. Well, a lot of seniors don't have internet or something like that. Get everyone on the internet if you can. And if you got 50,000 people, and you can only get 40,000, that's still better than what's happening today. So we're trying to get the word out on that part of it too. So, and we're not just talking to Scarborough Southwest, we're reaching right to Highland Creek and up to Malvern, where people are starting. And it's not community groups, it's people. So one person's in pharmacy and St. Clair saying, I've been in this neighborhood for 3 years and I didn't know what was going on here. And then I got it and I started sharing it with my neighbors. So there we go, spread the word, right? So in your group, it's the same thing. It's those group of people who get together for coffee, they can share things. So it's a suggestion. Good comment, so too.
Thank you,
Okay.
Monica.
Yeah, so next on the list is Cliffcrest, Scarborough Village. Peter.
I want to thank Ron and S.U.N for organizing this tonight, and thank you, Parthi, for coming out, and everybody else for coming out. Parthi, I just want you to relax, because we're meeting on Friday, and I'm just going to give a big picture of who we are. First, a little bit of housekeeping. Unfortunately, I'm pinch hitting tonight. Speaking notes from Marina, who was supposed to be in Marina's our vice president. For those who know her, you know she's a force of nature and someone to be reckoned with. And I'm simply coming in because she can't be here. Anyway, about us, and I'm going to say this once, and only once because our name is a mouthful. It's Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association. I'm just going to call this the RA from here on in. We're not for profit, and we are incorporated in 2020. By policy, we are nonpartisan. We respect the diverse opinions of our membership, and we build strong relationships with whomever is elected. That said, we encourage all our membership to participate in local democracy and vote. That's why we were happy to work. Alan Burt, who's one of our directors, is here, worked with S.U.N when they had the Scarborough Votes. In fact, I value my Scarborough Votes t-shirts.
And Rhoda and Agent Court.
And sorry, and Rhoda and Agent Court. Rhoda I've known for years, and I apologize for missing it.
And we got the t-shirt too.
There's only 3 of its kind.
The association wants to represent the voices of the neighborhood, to raise awareness and advocate for inclusion and due process in the decisions that impact our community. Ron, I've got a little bit here to say, and please just give me a minute. When I've gone on too long, let me know, so that, because I'll go on forever. We have due process decisions that impact our community. We have a mission statement. Together, we preserve the unique nature of our neighborhoods. That doesn't mean that we want to keep them existing in 1950. We understand neighborhoods are dynamic. We just want to make sure that what comes up integrates well. We have 7 directors, 4 committees. We have planning and development. Alan Burt is one of the co-chairs on that committee, and I'm also a member of that. We have heritage and environment. We have membership and fundraising, communications and community affairs. I'm not going to deep dive into anything here, but if anybody wants to speak, if we have time here, and if we don't, happy to speak to anybody later. Happy to give you contact information. We have a website. I'm going to encourage all of you who are interested to go on and view it. We've spent a lot of time working on it, and we have a lot of information. Again, it is CSVSWRA. Okay, our boundaries have changed. We were originally, we changed them a couple of times, but now we are south of the railway tracks, north of the lake. We go as far west as Brimley, but we amalgamated a part to Midland at the request of nearby residents who we've been working with in the past. And we also go as far as Scarborough Golf Club, just a little beyond where Kingston Road and Scarborough Golf Club meet. So we actually are in your ward, we also are partially in Paul Ainsley's ward. On our website, we'll go back to that, we have a support tab. It holds numerous letters of support and presentations that have been prepared by our volunteers on behalf of members and of the community. We are also building a frequently asked question and resource tab to capture questions that are often asked, and we just want there as a resource for people in the future. We have a project tab that captures some of the community projects and initiatives. When I'm listening to people here and I'm speaking to people wherever, I can do a template on the developments that are coming in. They're all about overmassing, and it's right, it's about greed. I'm a retired real estate appraiser, and I've looked at private equity, and I can confirm that. It is about greed, there's massing issues, there's a lack of understanding of what diversity is in our various neighborhoods, and the need to make sure that we have proper community supports, because built form really, really influences how people act in their communities. And we have, believe it or not, planning department, and I'm not gonna dump on them. I personally believe, because I've looked at this, I believe Scarborough planning is, until very recently, under-resourced. I believe, whether that's purposeful or not, they've been inundated with applications beyond their ability to control, and they've merely been reduced to people doing checklists. But part of the big problem that we have is we have a problem with ingress and egress, or accessing of the site somewhere in city planning, and I don't understand why, because I consider it to be problematic. They prefer to have access to these major arterial sites right on the local streets. And when you ask them about it, they say, well, because it's unsafe and hazardous to have it on the main street where we're building the property. Well, maybe the project is too big then. And if it's too unsafe to go onto the main street, how is it not unsafe and hazardous to be on the local streets? We realize neighborhoods are dynamic, and we realize change is inevitable, but we need it to be done correctly. You are absolutely right. We do not like the term NIMBY leveled at us. It's a narrative. It is, we consider it pejorative, because we are not against development. We just want to make sure that the proper supports are put in for the communities. Because, as you said earlier, and we agree, Scarborough has been a dumping ground, and my history goes back further than yours, and it goes back into the 60s in real estate, and I will tell you, it started then. The RA has done its best to try to keep up with the many changes being proposed for our city. We have issues with the minimum parking requirements that have been eliminated, because cars don't disappear just because you don't provide parking. Don't believe me? Go and look at any apartment building that has been in existence for a while, and where you see cars, you see them on all of the streets beside it. Why is that happening? Because the 1-bedroom and the 2-bedroom and the scarce 3-bedroom units, which used to house 1 or 2 people, or 2 or 3 people, or 4 or more people, have now, because of the cost of housing, increased their people in those units by at least 50 to 75%, and I'm not exaggerating. We have issues with major street studies, what's known as S.U.N, because we believe it's misnamed. What they have in there are minor arterial roads. For those of you who aren't familiar with road classification, I spent a lot of time looking at it, and I'll tell you, a minor arterial is like Huntingwood up in Agincourt. It's like Scarborough Golf Club Road, the street I live on, which are 99.9% residential. And if you're going to try and throw a 6-story, 30-unit apartment building on those properties, and you can on some of them, all you need is a 50-foot lot, and I believe you meet all the setbacks, it's gonna be problematic for a number of reasons. One is shadowing, and the second one is that I've spoken to the city about, and I've mentioned it to a couple of councillors, is it is going to unleash MPAC to go after properties that have this redevelopment potential, not because they're bad guys. If they were bad guys, I can really say something about myself. I worked there for a third of a century. And the problem is legislation requires them to revalue to highest and best use, notwithstanding it's called current value assessment. I spoke, and I asked I spoke with MPAC last week. I spoke with 3 people there. I asked, what do you know about econ? Nothing. The city has not spoken to them. It is a silo. And they were interested in hearing about it. And I said, okay, is this one of those confidential information discussions? And they said, hell no. You know, so, and I'm happy to tell you who I spoke with there, but it has the potential to be a problem. The night economy, we have questions on. We mostly aren't against stuff. We mostly have those unanswered questions that we get dismissed, we get marginalized. I've done a little bit of study on what's considered to be a new area of study, environmental discrimination, and I think Scarborough fits that.
Okay, just one quick thing, Peter.
Yeah.
The night economy was on the agenda when I got plopped in December council. I successfully got staff, I passed a motion to get a special consultation for our ward, because I'm pre-becoming council, I'm relatively plugged in. I was elected for 8 years, never heard about the night economy review. And I'm assuming many in our community haven't, which has rise for concern because we're creating a citywide bylaw. Anyone can open up a nightclub anywhere, essentially, on a commercial, retail, or industrial place. So we're getting a special consultation just for Scarborough Southwest. We're going to work with staff to have that happen. Just
Perfect, and thank you. I mean, it's the night economy, and if I can just be allowed to indulge myself for just a little bit longer here. It's areas, and I'm talking as an appraiser now, you always need to have something transition into something else, not something butt into it. Like, you wouldn't want to be living next door to a meat rendering plant, nor do you want to have a 20 or a 30-story monolithic building next to your bungalow. That's why we have historically the 45-degree plane. That's why we have in the official plan apartment zones and neighborhood zones. And what we find now is the developments on Kingston Road, and that's what's involved a lot of our time over the last number of years since we became incorporated, is Kingston Road has so much proposed development, and it's ad hoc development. We've been pushing for a secondary plan to no avail. Secondary plan would make us look at it holistically. What's happening now is we have avenue segment studies that are required for each of the developments, but the developments can be close by to each other, and they don't have to take into consideration the one that they can see just outside their back door. And so it makes absolutely no sense. We end up asking questions about it, and we get dismissed because, after all, we're NIMBYs.
Yeah.
So, and I realize that what we're experiencing is no different, and that's why these forums are so important, that we talk to each other. And we're always happy to share, and always happy to let you know what it is that we've done and what it is we're doing. Public consultation, every time I get, we're gonna have a meeting about the new development. I know it's not a meeting, it's a presentation, a fait accompli presentation. And really, all we're having is checklists. Yes, we've talked to the community. We haven't talked with the community, you've talked to the community. And that is different.
Can I quickly input something?
Please.
One thing I'm grateful is that I asked to be on planning and housing committee, and the mayor put me on it, right? Despite the criticisms of being a NIMBY. So I respect that she understood that I bring a critical lens to a complex subject. And in our first, and I signaled to the chair of Board Parks that in the February meeting, I want to create, what I want to do, because I'm learning the role, is in the life cycle of the development application process, at the very beginning, when it's pre-application, is when we need to go to the community. Because to your point, Peter, it is fait accompli, as we've seen in countless examples. So that's something I'm working on during February or March planning and housing, is that we insert, we revise the current life cycle to have it at the very beginning.
We are concerned with, the environment. The city has a climate change initiative, but all the developments we see coming through don't seem to take that in consideration. We talk about the unicorn, affordable housing. There is no such thing as affordable housing. We need to change that dialogue. It is about social housing, transitional housing, because if it was affordable, somebody who makes minimum wage would be able to afford it. We know that's not true. And look, I'm trying to be fair on every conversation I enter into. The problem is, we basically capitulated and said to private developers, whose job it is to make a profit, please build we think they're gonna be our savior for affordable housing. I will tell you, there's only 4 elements in any development. One is the land. Well, the price of land has been coming down recently, I will say that. It is also materials. Well, everybody knows materials went up during COVID and have come down a little bit, but have not come down enough. The other one is labor. Labor needs to push its wages up in order to afford the unaffordable housing. So the only other element is the cost of capital, and the cost of capital has skyrocketed, and that's why you're not seeing shovels in the ground right now. I was looking at private equity last year for March County for my last gig I did before I entered full retirement. However, the issue is simply, you can build housing that is not a commodity, co-ops, non-equity, equity, but you also need to take the environment into consideration, and that's what we've been doing in our group, because we're concerned about the Scarborough Bluffs and some of this development undermining it. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of the term iceberg basements, but basements that are bigger than the footprint of the house that go 2 levels down, and some of them have been put in and gone unchecked. You'll notice now that some of the developments are smartening up, and they're only putting their parking lots one level down, but that's still, the water that is below the railway tracks in the south end of Scarborough, you don't have to take my word for it, Alan can talk to you about this, it goes towards the lake. You put a big cement monolithic wall underground, it doesn't disappear, water finds the path of least resistance. Last spring, I think we had 3 landslides. Yeah, landslides, thank you. And, but anyway, we've been, we want the city to look at South Scarborough, we want the city to look at all of Scarborough. We believe the cumulative impact of housing beyond reason, while it's a motherhood issue and it's a nice thing to think that we need to house it, but we can't overload it to our infrastructure to the extent that the system breaks down. We're gonna have to wrap it up now. Okay. Others we have to do, we can come back at the end of the meeting. No problem, I'll wrap this up in 30 seconds. All I wanna say is, we've had we were involved in one recently, a development where we hired legal and planner, and the city lawyer would not speak with us. He would not talk to our lawyer. We've written a letter to that, we'll be discussing this with you on Friday, and please just go on our website, you'll see some of the stuff. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter, thanks very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Lots of information there. Birchcliff, Michael.
Thank you. Well, Peter, that was a lovely high-level capture of what's going on in all our neighborhoods, for sure. And, before I let me thank Ron for organizing this, and Parthi for coming out, and I'll give you the nitty-gritty. I'll give you the very opposite of what Peter's saying.
In a shorter version?
In 2020, we three people, and our three neighbors formed an corporate association to fight the old tree development that they were proposing, an 11-story condo building opposite Birchcliff Public School between Lakeside and Birchcliff Avenue. And we had real reservations about the impact, blah, blah, blah. And I had many concerns about traffic infiltration through Viewbank Avenue, which is the only way through to Warden, and if you have parking for 250 cars, they're gonna come out, wanna go north on Birchcliff, turn left to go downtown, and they can't get out, they're gonna go right through the neighborhood. So that was my concern. So we had 46 Zoom meetings between our lawyer, our planner, ourselves, the city planning, the alderman, the useless alderman, former alderman we had here. And then we went into mediation with, the developer went to the OLT. We got to make a party to the thing, and then we had 52 Zoom meetings in the next year through mediation, meetings more meetings with planners and at the OLT and a mediation. We had some success in getting the building reduced to 9 stories. We got the penthouse of the mechanical part was one big, huge, long, 2-story black monolith, and we got it pushed down into 2 boxes. We got the brickwork brought up to 6 stories, and we got the parking garage reduced not to ruin trees, and we got a commitment from the developer to fund a bump out on Birchcliff Avenue to prevent the cars from coming south and infiltrating the neighborhood. That was 2 years of fight. So our organization has been specifically focused on the all tree development, and we continue to follow it. I'm still dealing with our lawyer and the city planning and their lawyer to ensure that the site plan comes in as agreed to in the mediation, and that all the things we want are done, and we're not backstabbed by either the city, which is highly likely, or by the developer. So as far as I'm concerned, city planning, I don't know if I can speak for my other 2 directors, but city planning is the most disingenuous organization that I have ever dealt with in my life. And I had 40 years in a professional career in sales, and I've never met a group as disingenuous as those. They talk about a 15-minute city, and they dump these gigantic condo developments on us with no thought to the quality of life, to the services that people need in the neighborhood, to the schools. Birchcliff School is full, and they have 250 units coming in, and there's another one up the street they're talking about. Then you come to affordable housing. The Birchcliff development, they tore down 3 affordable apartment buildings, 30 units. Alltree is doing it again up the street, further up the street, that's I think 60 units. And all the city has to do is, they were seriously interested in affordable housing rather than just talking about it, they would not give a demolition permit to affordable housing units. The city can prevent demolition, they have to give a permit. If there's no permit given, no development can happen. If the city was interested, they would stop this destruction of affordable housing by simply saying, you can't do it anymore, no demolition permit. Then on all these condo buildings, where is a requirement for 20% affordable housing in those condos? This problem of affordable housing could be solved overnight. You say 20% of your condo has to be rents, and it has to be affordable rents. These are simple answers to a difficult problem, but it impedes the profits of the developers, and that, I think, is the issue that prevents them. So anyway, that's my comments, thank you.
Okay, so quick things to that. As we shared in our meeting,
Yeah.
what the city agreed to, we're gonna ensure that gets done. That's one. The rental demolitions is one thing Tamara and I have been spending some time on, because we're seeing it in Glen Everest, we're seeing it in Windy Ridge. It's pathetic, it's sad. The reality is, they will appeal to OLT and get it, because the argument is it's their land, they can do it. So one of the things I've signaled at Planning and Housing to the chair is that we need to, and even in our budget, is to look at mechanisms to disincentivize it, and how we can bring this to greater light. And that was the reason I got involved as trustee with the Lenmore Court, is displacing low income folks here. So it's something that, last point is the idea of mandating affordable housing, which is referred to by the technical term as inclusionary zoning. Our ability as a city to do that was taken away with Bill 23, right? So these are one of the things we're now pushing for. As I mentioned, referred to earlier, there's Ford has signaled that he's gonna walk back some stuff from Bill 23, which was, a developer's dream. We're hoping that's gonna be one of the things that we push back on. But it's really heartbreaking. Tamara and I were at the Windy Ridge one, when we were trying to ensure the residents of those units on the Kingston Road side, where it was pathetic to hear their experiences by the landlord in terms of property standards, and by the treatment in terms of ensuring all the paperwork was done to ensure they have the right to return. Because in a rental demolition, all the existing tenants in a demolition, they have the right to return. Their units will be reserved for that.
You know how real,
And even with the Lenmore Court people we were working with to.
you know how realistic that is, very few people have return back. I mean, it's a joke.
But
It's
the
just
thing
disgusting.
that we're talking though is there's 3 levels of government and there's one, right?
Yeah,
You,
yeah,
me,
yeah.
all singular,
Yeah.
and I'll be with you in my MPP one-on-one.
Yeah.
The point is that we have a collective disagreement with something, we want change, we make the change. So having your community group get together and making a point, if you're going to a developer and you make your point, and this is where we all are today, is to do this, not in a radical way and violent way, you just show them that, you know what, we're the shareholders here.
Yeah.
The weighting goes the other way. We need things done, you do it, like Parthi's talking about, but a lot of them are saying this stuff, but they're not doing it. So this is where we have to bring them accountable to it. So in this case, it's Bill 23, who's your MP? MPP, I mean. Nobody knows because they don't want to talk to you. Rhoda's been lucky. She has someone who's nonpartisan conservative. Looks for the president.
Liberal.
Eric?
He should be liberal.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So things can happen, right? You can get people, you pick people to lead for you, represent you, not parties, right? Even though there is a party. So that's what you gotta remember, is what are you gonna go for? And you still have that opportunity to call your MPP in Scarborough Southwest and say, what are you gonna do about this bill? Okay, do you see, you live in our neighborhood? If you don't, geez, maybe we won't vote for you next time. We want people that wanna reside here and work here and support here. It's my opinion, sorry, for the record. Okay, hey, great discussions though. So now we're bringing someone in from Scarborough South, not from Scarborough Southwest, is Shawn Allen from Scarborough Business. And just like we talked about the Delta Inn and shelters and stuff, it affects everybody in Scarborough in some capacity. There's not a hotel in Scarborough that you go to, and they're all covered in shelters, then the government's not doing their job to protect those people. Okay, it's a two-sided coin here, where there's 2 sides you have to do this, and it's a problem that they've had since COVID and longer before that. So now we've got something from Shawn in Scarborough Business and how it's affecting everywhere in Scarborough. So Shawn, you got the floor.
Good afternoon, thanks Ron for that, and Councilor for making your time. A couple of things I just wanted to point. So I'm the president of the Scarborough Business Association. I was with the association for I got elected as the president in June, but I've been with the association since 2018, and the association has been in existence from 2015. Right, so first things first, Scarborough, 50,642 votes. That's the number of votes that put the mayor into office. We're only missing out by 39 votes in my riding, which is Scarborough Ridge Park, which is the same riding as the Kelby. And I guess if she can endorse Anna Vilo, Rhoda's house trying to get support for that, she would have won that too. So like Ron said, there are no hotels in Scarborough. those bus routes, that lane is very deteriorated because of the heavy weight of the buses. So if you drive down all that the red lanes, completely deteriorated. So that's gonna be another issue that we have with this.
Shawn, can you speak up a little bit?
Okay, sure. I'm a big guy. I didn't want to. Let me sit up. Another thing too is I made a case back in, I think it was September, October, when the city went, and this was before your time, they voted to limit the amount of rideshare. And then I did a report with Uber. And at that time, Uber trips, once they decommissioned the line 3 in July, Uber trips were up 72% in Scarborough, more than any other jurisdiction. And Uber trips from Kennedy Road, from Scarborough Centre to Kennedy Station were up 29%. And all of this was a direct correlation to the timeline when the line was decommissioned. I'm not sure where we're at with regards to, I guess, the ongoing issues and around that litigation, but that's something that needs to still be addressed because.
So in December, the mayor, to her credit, pulled it back.
Oh, in December? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
in December.
So still
there
on
is-
the
there
table.
is- But it's still on the table, because the argument that Uber advanced was that the typical, process in consultation on a major policy change wasn't done. It was brought in as an amendment on an environmental fund, so there wasn't advance notice given. That was the argument he advanced, and council, the mayor recognized that and pulled it back. And there's gonna be a process now that allows the public, employee, rideshare drivers, et cetera, whoever else to input on that question.
Okay, cool. Senior housing strategy, you're on the housing and planning committee. Affordable housing, major issue. Right now, currently, and I just had a call with the housing secretariat, Abby Bond, it was yesterday, the day before, and she informed me that right now as it stands, there's 85,000 on the supportive housing wait list. And the city's plan was to build 65,000 units over 10 years, which equates to about 6,500 units every year, but we're nowhere near the target. So back to the original conversation that we had when we came in with Rhoda, we have, 400 people sitting in the Delta. The city's not anywhere close to hitting the target, and my understanding, I know Rob, we spoke about this yesterday, we have no clarity on whose portfolio that falls under. Is it part of the housing and planning committee, or is that part of economic development? Because we were kind of confused.
On that 65,000 commitment.
Well, the 65,000 commitment is planning and housing.
But shelters.
But the shelters, I was under the impression that
It comes under because the shelters come under Court Tanner, who report, we're learning all these people who reports to,
I think it was
Raftis, right? Refers to Paul Raftis. Yeah, so it's not, the shelters don't come under planning and housing, it comes under economic and,
Maybe because it's hotels, it comes under economics.
Yeah, so it's
Is
hotels.
that the reason?
Yeah, it's a business, so it comes under
Comes under
economic
that.
development. However, it's still a planning and housing issue, which
Yeah.
falls under court
It's
first.
in the cracks.
Right, and I think
Exactly.
because there's confusion as to where it lies, because technically the hotel is a business, but the shelter facility comes under the supportive housing, which we have an 85,000 person wait list, which is not gonna get fulfilled anytime soon, and it doesn't even mandate, so it doesn't even line up with the targets.
Yeah, I think the 65,000 commitment is on affordable housing, whereas those who are unhoused that need, I guess the term is supportive housing, which is different from
Which is
affordable housing is like
THC.
THC, rent geared to income,
Yes.
20-30% below market value. Let's put that in one bucket and call that affordable housing, whereas this is the city funding and building shelters with the services.
But the conversation I had, I don't think it brought it to that space. It's the understanding that I got, maybe I'm incorrect, but the 65,000 homes was all gonna be in the same bucket.
For shelters?
Well, for those that need to come out of shelters and into supportive.
Oh,
and
yes, oh, yes,
65,000
so hold on, so we've got the folks who are in hotels.
Correct.
We need to move them to shelters. To do that, we need money, and this is part of the pitch to the federal government, $250 million, to build shelters, to move folks from hotels to shelters.
Well, my
Then
understanding.
eventually, those shelters may be, and then you've got regular people, I'll just say,
Yeah.
who also need access to affordable housing.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's
Which is
65,000,
market rent.
that 65,000 is planning and housing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the moving folks from hotels that have been used as shelters to shelters comes under economic development because we have to build those shelters to move them.
Right, and then with regards to building those shelters, apparently there's a 5-year plan for that.
That's what's coming to council in February, and what we're looking to do is place the pressure to at least remove the delta from that and for staff to figure something out. And then meanwhile, parallel, there's this almost now kind of public fight. You may have heard of MP Yvonne Baker from Etobicoke went on CP24 and started trashing the mayor because as a council, we've asked the federal government to pay $250 million to help build the shelters because, and I think rightfully, because the decision to increase the number of refugees and asylum seekers is obviously a federal government decision.
Yes.
So our argument is, you've made that call. Toronto's home to most of the folks who are coming in seeking asylum and refugees, including myself. We came as refugees in '88, right? And, now they've got to pony up to help us create those spaces.
But it's coincidental that the city already has that 5-year plan in place, and then they wrote the letter, Rhoda, to say that they wanted an extension for 5 years. But then the housing and planning was the one that wrote the 5-year extension request, or said that they needed financing for 5 years, that financing plan, but then the economic development committee has no privy to that, and they're the ones that sent the letter to say that they need an extra 5 years for the delta. So there's no communication here, so it's kind of like a
Sorry,
gray
the
area.
planning and housing center letter?
No, the planning and housing, committee was the one that they said they have a 5-year plan for funding.
For which? For the 65,000?
For the
Yeah,
65,000.
so that's the new deal that the city made with the provincial government.
Correct.
Yeah.
But then they went and said to Rhoda that they need the 5-year extension on the delta.
So the two are separate?
They are, but they're not, right? Because there's a coincidence that both of them are 5 years, because they need.
Yeah, they're both 5 years, but the shelters is a different number. I think the shelters, the city wants 5 or 10,000 new spots. For those, so right now, in the 17
9,000
sites,
people.
how many, yeah, then it's
9,000
10,000.
people,
So
10,000 people
so for the
shelters,
17 shelters, to
17
move.
hotels,
Sorry.
not shelters.
Okay.
Shelters.
Just
All the
hotels.
motels are
Yeah,
gone
yeah,
too.
no, sorry, man.
There's only
Fried.
one having that.
So the
I think it's
17
Sullivan.
The 17 hotels, which we want to remain hotels, the city needs to build shelters. These are
5
unhoused
years.
folks, yeah.
Yeah.
What's coming to council is that extension for up to 5 years. What we're doing, at least Jamal, Nick and I are pushing to get Delta removed off that list. Just the Delta.
But then
because
we
of its
don't have a
impact.
place to put those 400 people.
They have to find a place.
That's what
They've
we're
got a
asking
mandate to
staff.
find it.
We're
Do
trying to put the
something.
political will on staff is to do what you gotta do, but by September, when the lease is up, move at least those 400 people into a shelter,
Into a safer situation.
into a safer situation. And then, so let me finish that off. So the money we need from the federal government, the $250 million, is to build shelters that will accommodate the 17 people, which is roughly 10,000 spots.
Yeah.
The 65,000 is building, so you may have saw the announcement a day or two ago for the northeast corner where Kennedy Station is. And that's it's gonna be the biggest, 1,000 units.
Yeah, I see
So
that.
that 5-year plan is for the 65,000 affordable housing, not necessarily people coming from shelters, but regular folks who are looking for, rent based on income, below market value. It's gonna be a combination.
and now one at 2444 Eglinton you're talking about was a parking lot for Metrolinx and TTC, so there's 400 parking spots now that are gonna be gone, back to that one.
Exactly.
And there's 600 affordable rent income gonna be out of 900 in that place, but they're gonna be 20, 30, 40-story buildings too.
Yeah, and then two other quick points. I'll talk Golden Mile, inclusive, local economic opportunity. So with those 60 condos coming in, we spoke to, the SBA spoke to many of the businesses there, and they're very concerned with Metrolinx's lack of communication. So completely stopped responding.
They were surprised here.
They should have taken down no one. Single choir, no communication.
Complete no communication, so I'm very concerned about that.
It's sad to be laughing about this.
It is.
It's sad.
So I just wanted to put that out there, and also too, another quick point I wanted to touch was, the multi-tenant housing bylaw, that's coming into effect, I think it's March the 1st. A lot of residents are concerned about that, because right now there's landlords running,
Yeah.
pretty much rooming houses, and the residents are complaining, he's not doing anything, and now they're running these, and they're making a fortune on them, but to the detriment of the community and the people that live there.
Not just the people who live there, these deep-pocketed investors who run the rooming houses would price out young couples and families from buying in Scarborough who want to, because they'll outbid them, because they'll put in 12 to 15, usually international students,
Yeah.
charge them $500-600.
It's my understanding you don't have the right to regulate them, you don't have, enabling legislation that
So
allows you.
this is why these bylaws are coming, they're gonna be interesting, and this is something, again, we need cross Scarborough solidarity to enforce. Those bylaw officers are going in, cause if it's 6 per maximum, and you've got to have your 3 fire entry, this in a way, I'm hoping will now disincentivize those folks from running illegal rooming houses, because now you can get them, oh, you don't have a fire exit here, you don't have a fire alarm, you can now start, if they're going more than 6, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is it's enforcement. So we've gotta make sure the bylaw officers are hired and they're enforcing the new bylaw.
Can you go into the unlicensed ones? That's what I was told you couldn't.
Yeah,
My understanding.
This is what we need to sort out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
so the budget can have now more bylaw enforcers, we need them to do that, because every law has no bylaw enforcer.
That's the thing.
So you can raise a few bucks in that one.
So in closing, so through the SBA, we're pushing to, get more of the bylaw office, but we're also putting, a mandate out to educate people as well. We're working on, an affordable housing summit in May 22nd to 26th. And I think part of that is awareness, just keeping the residents, whether it's Scarborough residents or any part of the city's residents, just informed as to what the bylaws are and how to effectively, if someone wants to go and abide by the bylaws, okay, let's get them educated on how to properly put these, units in place. So that's kind of my story.
A couple of quick things, very quick, because I know there's a few more speakers. Metrolinx, to Ron's earlier point, we need a voice to do a review on the governance of Metrolinx, which happens at the province. So I don't need to talk about the failures, so that needs to happen. The idea behind creating Metrolinx is that you have these experts who are gonna make sound transportation decisions that are not politicians. But what you did is you give them a heck of a lot of money, and they ran up the bill, and there's no spotlight on that,
No.
because they're not elected.
Yeah.
Right? It's terrible governance, so that needs to be.
So on
reviewed.
that point, if I can again, we have resources and skilled people, experienced people that are a voice right now, and we need our Scarborough councillors and MPPs to support them. So this is where we get our voice again together, right? So it's not just one MPP in Agincourt or one here. We got all the councillors have to be on the same page.
Quick thing on Golden Mile, if we can get those small businesses together to come out and voice their concerns about this, what we're doing along the Golden Mile, so you have a whole swath of commercial retail, but take the Adonis, wonderful supermarket, excellent hummus there. condos, right? We're in a slew of commercial retail, 60 condos between Vic Park and Birchmount. If the ones who are losing their business because their landlord, the owner, is now profiteering from selling or developing themselves, they need to come out and speak out, because you're now taking out all viable, proven commercial businesses now being kicked out, and now you're bringing tens of thousands of more people in who now don't have shops to go to, on top of the existing residents. So getting their voices organized is very important in the case, because some of the Golden Mine stuff is going to the OLT. And I think as a city, I'm gonna push for us to challenge that stuff, having your voices at the table. And the last thing is, part of the Golden Mile, and this is coming up, because we learned that yesterday, is the south side of Eglinton, east of Warden, is what was already approved, obviously before my time, called regeneration, which means now they're gonna do a study like they did to the north side, and about more development.
More blowing up.
So this is where we need organized voices to make sure, okay, if we're gonna study regeneration, then it needs to be parks, schools, community centers, but it needs to be non-residential, because it's already there. And it was good, again, and it said, one of the new, to your point about city planners, we had some hope, but, I've been in this thing where you've gotta measure your hope, you have to take it carefully. To have one of the new senior planners to recognize that what's being projected for Golden Mile is an incomplete community, I thought was a big win, because it's somebody who actually was, I hope he wasn't saying what I wanted to hear, and I didn't see that in a public forum, but him at least acknowledging what's happening in Golden Mile is not a complete community was heartening, but we need the voices to come out.
I'm gonna speak to, United Way on Friday, as well as Centennial College. And we're working with the University of Toronto as well, doing some research as well, so we'll report back to you on that research for that initiative.
One thing, what we wanna see is, we know Centennial takes a lot of international students. You need to take those parking lots and build affordable housing.
Yeah, we can bring that,
Because that is the reason why there's a market for these bad faith rooming house operators, because they know those students will pay $3-4. You can't blame the students, they're being exploited, whether it's by the landlords or employers. Because we heard international students being paid $10-11 an hour cash, and we'll get into that.
And the Golden Mile also includes Scarborough Centre, Thompson, right? And he needs to be engaged in this, because it's mostly residential people that don't know what's going on.
How?
Huh?
We're definitely.
Good speak. Not good like
Okay,
that.
that's what I knew the how was, capital letters, right? But no, that's the point we have to do, is bring them, and there's some community groups north of Eglinton there that are the ones that just need to know, and then they can start to do something, so, good stuff. Oakridge, John.
Hello everybody. So my name is John Kvitkovic, and I'm the Community Recreation Programmer. I work for the City of Toronto and Park Forest Recreation Department, running Oakridge as the CRP. So just a little bit about me. I've lived in this area for my entire life, which is quite long now. And when I was a young man, I'm going to give a little plug to Josh's organization here. This facility here and the work that the Boys and Girls Club did in shaping me was supremely impactful. So quite frankly, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the Boys and Girls Club, which is where we're sitting today. So thank you, Josh, and your organization. You do great work. So I'm going to take the official position that I'm here for as part of the Oakridge Community Centre. So I'm going to speak about parks, forestry, and recreation programming. But I do want to kind of take an advocacy role for recreation. So in listening to all of you here tonight, you're speaking about healthy cities or whole cities and creating environments that are conducive to healthy lifestyles. And recreation is a key pillar to that. We're blessed in this area to have some fantastic facilities, absolutely fantastic facilities. Boys and Girls Club is one of them. We've got Scarborough Soccer Center at 40 Fairfax, which is another one that people may overlook. And then the City of Toronto official parks, forest, recreation facilities of Birchmount at Birchmount Kingston Road, 93 Birchmount Road, Warden Hilltop on Mendelssohn Avenue, and then Oakridge Community Centre. So there's the three in Councillor Kandavel's area that, respectfully, I think provide really fantastic services. We do the best. We have a team of incredible staff at the front lines really at the front line. So Andrew Piper and Patrick Magley at Birchmount, and Kim Alexander and Carlin Tunbridge at Warden Hilltop. I'm housed out of Oakridge. So the programs at Oakridge specifically are all the programs are free. We have a fitness center up on the second floor, which is it's a gem. It's heavily utilized, especially in the busy times before work and after school, evenings and weekends. But it's about 2,700 square feet. It's got a sauna. Hot tub isn't working, but it's a fantastic facility that many people don't know about. We offer programs varying from, so Birchmount and Warden have gyms. I don't have a gym a gymnasium at Oakridge, but I do have multi-purpose spaces, craft rooms, early years rooms upstairs, and a kitchen that we do cooking classes in. So I have brought some pamphlets if anybody's interested in learning about our programs. So one of the things that was, when Ron was sending out the information, was, talk about some of the challenges that we have. And so, I've been blessed in my career working 31 years with Parks, Forest, Recreation to be able to get some, amazing supports. Birchmount just had a gym built. Scarborough Reading Gardens Council and our department has engaged in rebuilding Scarborough Reading Gardens. So that's, I think, a $13 to $15 million. Don't quote me on the exact amount. Rebuild. The building has been leveled. It's fully gutted down to the ground, and I understand they're starting to dig the foundation. The footings for the new building are being dug as we speak, and the timelines 2025, mid to late 2025 is probably current expectation of reopening that complex, which, unlike the old building which just had the rink, this one will also have community space. So there's some community space as part of that component, or that component to that facility. So we and I understand you guys are having some renovations here. So there's some work being done to, build new facilities. The gym at Birchmount is a couple years old. The track is about 10, 15 years old. Oakridge is a 1989 building, so it hasn't had any rehabilitation or any changes other than the kitchen since 1989. And our capacity is stretched. So when I sit here and listen to everyone speak, so some of the things that I can match, what I can echo is, as we have the density increases into the population in the city, we're a very dense city as it is. I think the densest in North America, if I'm not mistaken. We see the same challenges as service providers, especially with the city, with expectations. People have needs and wants that we can't always fulfill because our programs are full, because our limitation is space limitations, right? So, we do the best that we can within the capacity that we have, and that's the essence of what we do here. So I know that time is stretched, we're closing in on 9 o'clock. But if you guys have any questions, I can stick around, answer questions for you guys, and hear if you guys have any concerns or suggestions for programming or any ideas like that.
Josh, do the lights go off at 9 o'clock?
Nope, that's
Oh,
fine.
okay. Just what I say.
But it's gonna cost you $1 each to stay.
Thanks, John, for that. And it just adds to the other social services groups that we're talking to. So, and what Parthi was talking about with daycare, childcare, things, is we need that ice rink that Misha took his son to, the holidays, and it's not open during the day, all right? It's just those little things that you shouldn't have to be out there trying to make a call and say what's going on.
So if I can add to that point, because that's a good point that you just raised. So Scarborough historically has had, I think out of any district in Toronto, we had the most covered rinks. But that doesn't help us in terms of 2024 with the new style of uncovered rinks, like the Greenwoods or the McCowan District Parks.
DS Park. Yeah.
So the, there's an evolution in the city, and there's a lot of suggestions for, creating new infrastructure. And so management with the city of Toronto and council are gonna have to come up with solutions to, create the opportunities for these, I guess, builds, right?
And with all the densification that's going on, people need to do things and need those facilities, so don't fill in all the blanks here with condos, right? We need recreation, that's an important part of it, so great. Jonathan?
Take the best for last.
No, we're still going, we can still stand back and talk about this after, but go ahead, that's, yeah, Toronto
That's
Cyclists.
No, I'm good. I'm fine. I just said my piece last week. You talked last week, right? Yeah. Yeah, this is, thank you for the organizers. This, anytime people come together, good things happen. So really appreciate that this happening, and everyone coming out, and also thank you to you for being a counselor. It's a job I wouldn't want. And so I really do appreciate your service to this community, and really liking the way you're talking here. So I do a number of different things in the community, but tonight I'm wearing my Toronto East Cyclists hat. We started in 2010. You might remember Michelle Berardinetti, one of her primary planks was getting rid of bike lanes, and that was part of the Ford stirring up the war on the car kinds of stuff. One of the first things she did after being elected was start a cycling committee. And we actually are, the cycling started as her cycling committee back in 2010. And I think it's because she recognized that this community is not just drivers, it's people who walk, it's people who ride their bikes. We discovered early on that downtown, there's a higher rate of people having driver's licenses than there is in this part of the city. So there's a myth that Scarborough is car-centric, and in fact, more of our population don't drive cars than in other parts of the city. So really one of the things we work on is the infrastructure. And it's the same kind of question that's been going around. How do we make this a good, livable city for a lot of people? Personal story, I moved to this community 20 years ago and chose here because many years ago I chose not to have a car for a number of reasons, and this was a good neighborhood to live in without a car. Good transit, able to walk around, good services. I would say it's worse now than it was then. I live near Sun Valley, seeing the other services that are disappearing there, seeing the increase of traffic. My street, I would say there's twice as many cars in the houses on the small street that I live in behind Workman. And I think it's because people may want to walk, they may want to cycle, but they can't. And so that's related to all the development that's coming in. Yes, we have to provide parking, but we also have to say to those people, you can live in this community without driving as much as you have to. It's a matter of supporting business in this community, and we don't want to create a community where it's easy to drive to Scarborough Town Center. We want people to actually shop and do business here in Scarborough Southwest. So we recognize, though, that people voted for Michelle because she promised that, and our approach really has been safe streets for cyclists, safe streets for pedestrians, safe streets for drivers. And the other thing that we've done is we've recognized that people talk about cycling as a downtown issue, and even the way city staff work is they have a downtown sort of approach to it. And so the other thing that we've done is said, when we plan that kind of infrastructure, when we have those kinds of conversations, there has to be a Scarborough voice. It has to be done differently here. When the city staff design a cycle path, they need to talk to the people who actually live in this neighborhood and cycle in this neighborhood and so on. I really appreciate your support of transit. One of the issues is that final mile. So great if there's better transit, but people need to feel safe going from transit to the shopping center, from transit to their home. So our streets have to be safer than they are now. The reality is Scarborough is the most deadly part of the city for pedestrians, for cyclists, and those, in terms of deaths, but also in terms of injuries and unreported injuries as well. So something has to be done with our streets. We started as a Scarborough Southwest group, actually Ward 35, there was a group in Ward 36, we joined together during COVID. We ended up being much more across Scarborough. So we work with folks in Asian Court, Sport Union, people in Huntingwood, helping them to engage the city around that kind of infrastructure. engage their community, education around how to drive more safely, how to bike more safely, how to walk more safely, how to engage the city, how this kind of infrastructure can be better for them as a community. Marvin McCarrick, you may know, works for Scarborough Cyclists. That organization looked at across the suburbs and shows this community is the community with the most latent demand for cycling. They recognized, again, the number of people who depend on something other than a car. So when they decided to set up Scarborough Cycles, that's why they chose Access Point. Hopefully he'll get to talk to you more about the work that he's doing. We've also connected, there's a new group called Danforth Kingston for All. It's people who are concerned about the safety of our roads and want the roads to be, yes, usable for cars, but for pedestrians and cyclists as well. So we also connect with organizations across the city, with Cycle Toronto. We try to engage city staff. There's a group called Toronto Community Bikeways Coalition, Walk Toronto, Friends and Families for Safe Streets. So we have all those kinds of connections as well. I have a couple asks for you. Yeah. So the first is to recognize the power of the narrative, the power to shape the narrative that the councillor has. And in the past, there really has been around road safety. It's become a binary, divisive issue, and it's been used politically. And so to recognize that the way you talk about road safety, and you know this, but I'm going to remind you of it, is really kind of shapes what happens here in Scarborough. The other really key role that you can play is, as we talk to people doing this kind of work across the city, if a councillor is supportive, one of the main roles the councillor does is to actually help us to connect with the city staff who are planning this, and help the city staff to recognize things are different in Scarborough than they are in somewhere else. And in fact, we're the people who use these roads. We're the people that, a lot of our work is trying to bring other community members in. A lot of the Birchcliff and Danforth, or Birchcliff Pharmacy, great ideas, so poorly implemented. Brimley was another one, so poorly implemented and designed. And so we really would like to be at the table to say, let's design this well, let's consult with the community really well. Let's talk about how we can best serve all of the people in Scarborough Southwest. Not just those who drive, but the many others who don't as well. Yeah, and the other is just the urgency of this. The city has made commitments around climate change, and it's falling behind. Finding ways that people can not get in their cars is one of the main commitments there. How we do the builds, we've heard that already from others too. You put up these condos, they might say, some of them have hundreds of bike spaces. There's nowhere to park. There's no infrastructure for that. So the importance around that being part of the planning process and so on. Yeah, I think that's about it. I've been doing this since 2010, and there's all kinds of stuff bubbling around in my brain. But the biggest thing is just really would look forward to a councillor we can work with well, and the councillor that sees this as part of doing this kind of work differently in the city. But I one of the things I do when I show up at these citywide organizations is say to them, you can't do out in Scarborough what you're doing downtown, and you have to do it differently.
One of the aspects, one of the narratives, of course, is that all the accidents are due to cars. My experience around that, it's increasing, is that not all, like I ride a bike too. I like riding my bike around the neighborhood and whatnot. But what I'm seeing increasingly is a total lack of respect by a lot of bicyclists, not all of them. A lot of bicyclists don't pay any attention to the rules of the road. I had a period, in a 2-week period, where I almost ran over 2 bicyclists. I was going through a green light at St. Clair and Kingston Road, when I was going across. They ran through the red light, waved at me as I slammed on the brakes, as they just rode right in front of me. If I hadn't braked, I would have run right over him. And of course, that would have been my fault. Oh, because I hit a bicyclist who didn't want to have to stop. And I'm seeing it increasingly, families riding around the neighborhood where I am don't stop at stop signs, they just ride right through them. Like, they don't matter.
So I don't want to get into this kind of debate, but cars do that as well in our
No,
community.
I'm not,
So it's around
but one thing at a
education
time.
for
If we're
everyone
going to
who's
increase,
a road user.
if we're going to increase bicyclists and you want road safety, everybody has to obey the rules of the road.
Right.
Not just one. They all have to obey it. And I'm seeing increasingly, there used to be a road safety programs for
So this is the
bicyclists.
binary that I don't want us to get
In
into.
schools,
Yeah.
like, where they taught bike safety. That seems to have gone by the wayside. So if we're gonna have all these bikes riding around with cars, which we're not gonna get rid of in Scarborough for a while, the roads have to be safe for everybody, which means everybody has to obey the rules.
I think it's a contentious topic, clearly, obviously, and I think on both sides there needs to be less demonization. I, felt, demonized when I had, when I wasn't supportive of protected by things, that, Jonathan, that's not news to you from the campaign, and I have, seen it both ways, right? I think we need to get out of that binary, like you said, and look at ways to build a culture. And to your own point, you can't go from, 2 lanes of traffic to just one in Scarborough, because as they've done in other areas, you have to work towards the culture changing. Culture change takes a lot of time. I am open to talking about different ways to create safer streets. As you saw in my literature, I'm committed, and we've already started looking at speed cameras in areas where safety is an issue, right? And those are a tangible way to change behavior when it comes to safer streets. So it is a complex and layered conversations that I made commitments to certain things. So I'm open to meeting with the group and talking about ways, but recognizing there should be less demonization. I'll say as I cycle recreationally, and I do feel that there is a lack of appreciation of the car and its purpose in the lives of Scarborough families, and the geography and space that's underserved by transit, and also a lack of recognition of the cultural factors that are unique to Scarborough. We have more multi-generational homes that necessitate 2 cars typically, because you've got 3 generations of drivers. My family was one. I drove, my dad drove, my granddad drove when I was in my 20s. And also connected to the cultural aspect. If you've got your social spaces for certain folks are downtown or in your immediate neighborhood. For many in our community, this is a cultural thing. They're visiting family in Brampton, in Ajax, in Markham, right? And that's not a reality for many families or individuals who cycle, because they're social. And that's the thing I think that's missing is the ability, the frequency of some cyclists who will cycle 2-3 blocks down to see their friend, but then for many of our families in Scarborough, West Scarborough, they'll have to drive to Brampton to see their brother or sister, right? So those things are not quite understood by the cycling community, and I have to say, at times it feels heavy-handed, Jonathan. Like, I'm trying to bring a balanced approach, but I'll tell you, during my campaign and the previous one, the most attacked I've gotten were from cycling activists. And they tend to have tunnel vision that it's the only issue that a municipal candidate should care about. And I'll tell you one specific example. It was after the S.U.N organized an interview at the Birchcliff Community Centre. And a pro cyclist advocate came up to me and I said, listen, I'm going to be truthful to you. I can't support protected bikeways on Kingston Road, but I'll tell you what is important to me is youth violence in Scarborough. And the city does, under successive administration, has not made it a priority when a young person got killed at
Winston, David Mary Thompson, and at Woburn last year in 2022. We saw zero outcry from the city that rightfully in 2007 under Miller McGinty made when Jordan Manners was killed on a school property. It was 15 years between the two incidents. Was made, the Roots of Violence report was commissioned. There was funding provided by the province and the city. We haven't seen that apparently, and he didn't care at all about the two young people who killed, like an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old. It was about where are you on this one issue, right? And anyway, what I mean to say is there needs to be more nuance, more appreciation, and this, you're either with this or against this approach. I know you're not that, Jonathan, but I've seen that from certain and that's where the conversation needs to change, because that's when you'll have councillors who are more open-minded to looking at different strategies, because I don't think I'll tell you another example, because this is something that I've gotten attacked by. I see your hand, Rhoda, 1 second. When I made that comment in the Toronto Star article, I was giving an olive branch that I'm not full protected by things in Kingston, but I'm open to looking at the boulevard to put in a protected bike lane that's not on grade with the car traffic, but we've got space there. What did I get pillared by bicycle activists? Oh, you want to take green space away. I'm talking about 2 feet of green space on the boulevard to put in a bike lane, and I got attacked for taking green space away. Like, sorry, it's
So I like that.
that's where I have.
Got it right here, buddy.
Right?
Right here.
For being, it would have been much simpler for me, Jonathan, said, no bike lanes, end of story. But for being nuanced and, open, I got attacked for that, right? You saw that on social media.
No good deed goes unpunished.
So one thing I would say, right, the cycling community is not monolithic.
Yes, I know.
And so,
I'm
and
glad
that's
that-
actually, we as a group have said, because I've experienced of when the cycling advocates really get something downtown, it gets more dangerous out here, because it gets people angry.
Oh, yeah.
And so we started right with the beginning of celebrating, promoting culture shifts. So, yeah, I think we're on the similar page.
Rhoda,
Sorry, Rhoda
yeah,
was one-
it's an outside Scarborough Southwest experience.
I just want to add another job for you, Parthi. And that is the use of e-bikes and e-scooters. And especially in our area, many people are using them to get to work, to buy their groceries, to go from place to place. And they're using them on the sidewalks. And somehow, I think the city needs to seriously look at this, because it's the culture in our area, that has expanded. And it is an issue when I go for a walk. I mean, I cycle too, love my cycling. But when I'm confronted with an e-bike coming at me when I'm on a sidewalk, that's not safe for anyone, them included. So I do think e-bikes and e-scooters are something that the city needs to take a look at.
If they're
Especially
on the
where
road.
there's no bike infrastructure.
So the rules of the road are the key things, and if you're riding a e-scooter or whatever, make sure you got equipment on it. Like the rules of the road, be safe. Do you have a license to drive this? If you've lost your license in a car, does that mean you can drive your e-bike in the highway?
Some
Those
can't
are,
afford
just to
a
start
car.
off, it's just a starting point, right? Set the ground level then. But it definitely needs some consultations, if you will, to get things going, because I posted the bike storage, what's that?
The bike share.
Bike
So that's a
bike
good
share,
example.
okay, I
We
just
didn't even know
posted
it's
that.
happening, and the
Yeah.
city's doing a consultation, or an open house.
And Sun is
Yeah.
nonpartisan, so it's like, okay, anyone wanna go to Access Point and see the thing? It's on tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I got these emails from people they didn't say who their name was, and said, who are you? And go, well, who are you? All these emails and go, what the heck? They were radical saying, why are you supporting that? Supporting what? To go to the store and see about the bike share program. Like,
Oh,
that's
they
how
don't like you sharing about the bike
posting.
share.
Don't mention the word, I guess. It's like there. And okay, talk to me on the phone. So these are people that are hiding behind their emails and stuff like that. My point is that it's about information to learn about something and do. So when they go and put that bike share in front of your house, you're gonna say, what the heck happened? You could have went and had a consultation and talked about what's going on, but people don't wanna do it. And that's why I keep thinking and getting that kind of feedback, and it is very divisive, but it's gotta be not the downtown core doing it, it's gotta be the people, like I keep hearing, the residents, and saying, and if Kingston Road is a highway too, by the way, highway number 2. So you don't do that on the 401. but, well, some people did. But the point again is you have to have rules of the road and then decide on which part of the neighborhoods need this and want this. And then that's a slow step, but one size does not fit all, I was told, okay? So that was your point, and I think it's all taken, that's what we're here for. There's some things we don't wanna hear, but they are there, right? So they're in the closet, now they're out in the closet, let's go and let's talk about them. And that's what we're trying to do across Scarborough too, right? So it's not uncommon to have these discussions, so, and it has to be, Philip, did you wanna say something?
Just what you just said about the Kingston Road being a highway.
Oh, yeah,
I looked in the zoning. I don't think it's been rezoned for pedestrian bikes.
well,
That's something to look
this is
into.
the part we have
Yeah.
to look and do our research.
Because it's still part of the highway, the Trans-Canada's highway system.
Yeah, you can go all the way to Kingston for it, I think.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's the time we have, and I appreciate what we say here is, first of all, thanks to Josh and the team from WSCC for providing this place, and to everyone else that's participated in the last two forums. These are recorded, so it's gonna get edited, not edited, but posted. So I'll be speaking all of me. Special thanks to John Smee from Bluffs Monitor covering this. This is important for the neighborhoods. And the reach is very important, and support the Bluffs Monitor too, because these are all articles that are important. Emails don't always do it, and you have a paper and you can find retail, and that's businesses as well, so that's a good thing. Sun, just so you know, has only been formed since March of last year. And it was because we had a meeting like this on Zoom about just Scarborough Southwest communities. And Jonathan, you started it. And I was coming from another area, Scarborough Center, and lived in Scarborough most of my life. And said, wow, all these concerns are everywhere in Scarborough that I've seen and heard. And we need to join together and be a collective voice, because it's obviously not about you, but political leaders like to deal one-on-one, but if they deal with a whole room and they're all on the same page, it's a lot harder for them to step back on it. So not to be radical, but to be joint and collaborative. So this is what we've been doing. We're getting the message out, and as we continue with more and more support growing from communities, we're also welcoming individuals, and we've got a base of now over 240 people, just from the by-elections that we did. People are interested in getting that information, which I said to Monica and them, they need to share it out as well. So as we get that growing and growing, it's like a mushroom growing out, a cloud, that's where we go. We hope, for the record, that all the viewers that get to see this recorded forum will appreciate the community leaders who have spoken over the past two events, and our councillor, and the efforts that are happening and what's happening in Scarborough Southwest. That concludes the forum. Thank you.
One invitation open to all on Sunday, the Birchcliff Community Centre. We're hosting our New Year's levy. It's an opportunity to meet the rest of my team, share your ideas. There's some refreshments to enjoy. This Sunday, 1 to 3, Birchcliff Community Centre. We'll email the invitation. The other one, more heavy, very heavy, is my budget consultation open town hall, Birchcliff Community Centre, Thursday, January 25th. We were looking at Warren Hilltop, Jonathan, but we couldn't get it. So Birchcliff Community Centre, Thursday, January 25th, 6:30 to 8. We may go till 8:30. Big decisions coming up. Question on the tax hike. If not, where do we cut? What services are important? Please spread the word, come out. I've invited the mayor. She has a very busy schedule, hoping she comes out. But the chief financial officer, the top guy for the budget, will be there, Stephen Conforti. He'll be explaining the city's rationale for the tax hike and all the different components of the budget. So
Just on that note, since you brought it back up again, I've been getting emails from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation Alliance, I can't remember which one it is, indicating that included in that tax hike and whatnot is a $60,000 to $70,000 pay raise for the mayor and her staff.
So it's $7,000. It's tied to inflation, which was a policy or whatever motion that the former mayor had done to make sure whatever, that's their rationale. She remembered, she has, February 1st, she's unleashing her budget, right? So Optically,
On
does
a
it look good? I
13
agree, I
On a
agree.
$13 billion budget or
It's a-
$17 billion budget,
Well, you know,
it doesn't
we're-
matter, it's
we-
not even a
when you're
rounding.
talking about a $1.8 billion deficit and you're also going for a pay raise at the same time, the optics are absolutely freaking terrible.
Yeah, we just gotta pick our battles out. We
You
just
know
gotta
why,
pick the right
you know
ones.
why Singapore is successful? Because the man that ran Singapore as a dictator hired the smartest people he could find in the world and paid them $1 million, $2 million, and $3 million a year. And he took a backwater in 40 years and turned it into an international center of capital in Asia.
Hey,
That's what you get for what you pay.
I wasn't making I was asking to verify whether or not the comments of the taxpayers along was actually true or not.
We're all gonna write your opinion out, and I said it.
I met your brother.
One thing,